Good morning and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the municipality or the county of Annapolis. And we will begin with roll call, please, beginning with District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 3, Dustin Enslow.
District 4, Floyd Barrett.
District 5 is not here. District 6, Alec Morrison.
District 7, David Hudson. District 8, Michael Gunn.
District 9, Wendy Sheridan.
District 10, Brett Wright.
District 11, Diana Dunn.
Thank you. Could we have a motion to excuse Councillors Longmire and Connell, please? They have asked. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Berto, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Enslow, please.
Thank you. The topic of the lease for RCMP in Middleton.
Right.
5.4.
5.4, I'm an employee of the RCMP in project management.
Okay.
So I feel that there's a conflict.
All
I'd
right.
like to excuse myself from that.
Thank you. Any other disclosures of interest? Order of the day.
I'd like to change that order of the day to include something I'm not quite sure where to put it, either information or just new business, and that is public statements and letters by council.
Thank you. There is also a desire to have an item called Role of the Warden.
Be the same thing.
And there should be one on a short statement I will give on the Planning Advisory Committee meeting last Thursday night. Okay?
What was the first one?
Well, there were two actually, three. Could you give Councillor?
A request was made to add public statements and letters from council and role of the warden. The third one was.
So those are both the same.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one is a report by the warden on meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. Are there any others? Where did we put those?
We'd have to put 6, I guess, which is the last one.
Okay, so it'll be 6.4 and 6.5?
Yeah. Motion to amend it.
Could we have a motion to amend order of the day to that effect? Moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Gunn. Discussion.
Carolyn for 6.4. That wasn't one of those.
No, it wasn't, and it isn't.
The warden is going to speak to the case.
All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes, pages 3 to 7. Okay. We will move to now information staff reports, dangerous and unsightly premises, pages 8 to 9. Councillor LeBlanc, please.
I just have a comment. I say thank you very much for keeping it so organized and it's quite clear. And I was wondering if at any time have we ever seen it cleared up? I'd like to see it cleared up. Has that ever happened?
Good luck.
I know.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Enslow.
There seems to be a very heated discussion within my district around unsightly. And I guess, well, a lot of the discussion is around people for some reason, can't find the process of how to put the complaint forward if they have someone within their area that they feel is unsightly. So usually I'll direct them to call the county if they reach out to me or to look on the website. But is there something that we can do within the website to make it easier to find?
If I may answer. On the website, the section for protective services, it does talk about unsightly and dangerous, but contact me directly.
Okay.
You can also.
Okay, Councillor Sheridan, please.
I believe a while back, we actually put a new policy in place that the councillors can do the complaint
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
But I like it better as a person. They would have more information. Yeah.
But my comment on that, would a person who's looking for that be apt to know that it's under protective services?
Yeah.
I don't know how we would put something like that on the front page of our website, so
We'll be able to add it to our next newsletter. Contact information.
DUP is usually on the newsletter.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay. Further comments? Thank you, Councillor. And now we move to community spaces inventory, pages 10 to 107. And I would draw your attention on page 10, the penultimate paragraph. These pages are phase 1. Phase 2 is coming and will be here in December.
If I may, though, your community spaces does include all the parks and trails and, that we own and manage right now in your package, so that is a complete list. So if you have any questions of the maintenance, that would go to Jim Young in terms of overall, but when we started this process, it makes sense to include all the community spaces in Annapolis County, including our community halls, because they're assets and you support them through funding programs and other initiatives as well. And they're very important in our communities, but also to some of our other community recreation and sport opportunities. So.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. And we, in this phase 2, we'll mention Mickey Hill, the trails developed by Mersey Community Forest, the Harvest Trail.
Yes.
And these other trails and properties that we've acquired the last few years that we haven't done anything with yet, like for recreation. Like we got the Niffin Hollow property a few years ago, and we've never done anything with that yet. We just acquired the property, but that was bought for recreation.
What this includes is any existing parks, trails, open spaces, or cultural facilities in the towns in the county geographic area. Doesn't include vacant land that the county has not developed as of yet. So.
But it will include KG and all the rest.
It will include all your national, your federal, provincial, and your private sector.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson.
Yes, thank you. It appears that most of the actual work is put forward by our summer students. Am I correct there?
No, not exactly, but the Director of Municipal Operations oversees the maintenance of our parks, but so you may want to answer that question, but for the most part, we do have a full-time person for parks, and then they assist that person with summer students. Correct?
No, reading through it, it appears a lot of it was done by our summer students, actually. I'm not saying we don't have other staff. There's only one summer student. Yeah. Only one. Yes. So we only had one summer student? Yes.
For parks.
Oh, for parks. Oh, okay, for parks.
So all the facilities that you see that we own are done by municipal operations staff, whether it be in Bridgetown or Raven Haven, or it could be any of the other parks. So it's a fair amount of work because we have a lot of parks. And they need some tender loving care going forward, I say.
Councillor Ansel, followed by Councillor LeBlanc, please.
Thank you. All I want to say is good job for putting it together. Like the fact that we now have this information is better for us to look at from a council perspective. And the fact that there's actually pictures and there's not narratives, it's good to see. I do have one question. While the county was putting this together, was there any surprises or aha moments or anything like that?
What was that?
Like anything, did anything stand out during this? Could be like, oh, I didn't know we had that, or I'm just curious. Because usually whenever you do a project this big, there's usually some type of aha moment or something.
Well, we had a team approach to it because, as you can imagine, this was a lot of work to get out to all the different parks. And it wasn't just parks owned by us. It was parks owned by the town as well. So yes, we learned a lot of the town facilities as well. So if that was an aha, I think I was surprised that the town of Annapolis Royal perhaps owned a couple of parcels of property, and in fact that they do. And so they're managed by a third party, kind of like what we're doing with the sports hub in Bridgetown. But yeah, so those types of things were a bit of a surprise, kind of nice. I think by doing this, what we found was it gives a nice perspective and a learning moment in terms of being refreshed, because as we move forward to do our recreation plan, 10-year plan, and some economic development plans, what we now know is what's important to community, and that's why we feel to have the comprehensive one that includes the community halls and all the spaces is going to be a really good planning tool for us, because residents utilize all the spaces, whether it's in the towns or whether it's in our villages or our communities, and so it's nice to know all this. And then obviously we have a new and active living coordinator, so that person has actually got to see a good comprehensive view of all our facilities already. So it's actually been a really excellent tool for all of us. So
Perfect, thanks.
yeah, thanks.
Councillor LeBlanc, followed by Councillor Crouch, please.
Well, I would like to say thank you. I'd like to echo what Councillor Ansel has said, because it is a very easy document to see, locations, dates, or addresses, and so on. And I think if it continues on that way, we're going to have a great document for to have to use. I have a couple questions. First question is, throughout this, I found that there was a lot of them that had no winter maintenance. But there was a few that didn't say if there was winter maintenance or not, so I presume there was winter maintenance. For example, I guess I'll just pick one at random here. Page 43. Young's Cove Coastal Access and Coastal Adjournment Park. Is there winter maintenance there or not?
No.
Okay. So Jubilee Park in Bridgetown, is there winter maintenance? You do part of the parking lot? So, okay. So what happens to other parks that we have that if they could at least park there, they could snowshoe into the park, or, that's just a question.
It's a good point, because recreation activities don't stop in winter, and so therefore there are some areas. I know that Old Mill Trail, we have a paid parking, lot, and we used to plow that. I think we still do, but that might have been omitted on that one. But that one is actually plowed. I know that we're going forward with Upper Clements. There's going to be a lot of activity down there for the trails, and so there will have to be some consideration for that. But we're still negotiating how that's going to roll out because it's so new.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so that's on your radar to be looking at.
well, municipal operations, it's on their radar. They oversee the management or the maintenance of the parks. We advise them and put in work orders as we see fit, and we work in cooperation with them.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for the breakdown.
One thing I will mention, though, is the question that Councillor Gunn brought up was about our spaces that are vacant lands that we still own. He mentioned Clementsport Dam and what have you. But Cheryl McIntosh had created a package at one point in time, and if any councillor would like to have a copy of that, that was distributed to all the councillors at the time. But any new folks may not have seen it, but it is accessible to you if you want to actually take a look at the entire document. We can get you a copy. And one other further point is if you want to see our spaces, they are online, and I mentioned it in the introduction, where you can actually see them. And talking to Cheryl McIntosh, they've indicated that they're going to upgrade the map so that you'll actually go in and be able to see all the facilities in the county as well. So, but it's available now.
Councillor Brown, Bartow, and Sloan. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you. Just I'll pass on, as others have, a thank you to your team and yourself putting this together. It's really an exhaustive list. I wasn't aware there was a dog park in Annapolis Royal and a few other things that, you think, well, you should know that. I didn't. I would just mention there's a bit of a dearth of such amenities in parts of the East End. So hopefully once we get all the zoning and land use things dealt with, maybe we can take a look at that. I know we've had some starting discussions at the East End meeting a while back about possibly seeing what we could do there. But I'll just throw that out there.
Open for any discussions, if you like.
I beg pardon?
Open for any discussions, if you like.
Yeah. I think they'll be forthcoming.
Thank you. Councillor Bartow, please.
Well, I thank you for the report. It's obvious it took some time allowing it. It kind of drives it home that, I wasn't aware of the quantity of facilities we have around the county. And I guess it's, a daunting task to take on preparing and maintaining these facilities. And the importance of all this is kind of magnified by knowing this is only phase 1, phase 2 of 2. And we have a lot going back. I would like to get around at some point to say that I've touched my feet in the ground on each one of these guys. Thank you.
They're lovely parks.
Thank you. Councillor Enslow, please.
Thank you. I just realized there was one question for to ask. So in the places that we have floating jetties, so the Annapolis area and Jubilee Park, when do we usually put the jetties in and when do we take them out?
They go in before the long weekend in May, and they get taken out right after Thanksgiving. So this week, coming up.
That's good. All right.
Good time.
Well, I just want to know from my own personal myself.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. And the plowing for Upper Clements, we won't be plowing all of that parking lot, I would hope.
No.
Just a butt
Yeah.
to get us in. Thank you.
Further discussion? Thank you, Deborah.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to thank our team too, because it was kind of fun to divvy this up and learn from each other. But it's a good process. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Page 108, hospital parking fees. Deputy Warden, make that recommendation, please.
council that the municipality of the county of Annapolis send a letter to the Nova Scotia Ministry of Health and Wellness requesting that parking fees be removed from all public hospital facilities in Nova Scotia immediately.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hudson. Discussion. Councillor Enzo.
I'm glad that we're looking at this. It's something I often question personally myself, but I see it for two things. So I see it as a bit of a safety risk, the fact that they do have to pay. So we're seeing people that are parking on the roads, that are parking in places that they can't, or they shouldn't, just around the fact that, either they can't afford to pay. And I was never a big believer of having to pay to park to get services in Canada that are covered within our own healthcare. Now, the other question I had is, when this first came out, and maybe I missed it when I read it, that the money that was collected from the parking was originally going to be used for capital investments and investments of that parking lot. No different than a private organization parking downtown Halifax. But what I've seen in, well, must be 2 decades now that we've been paying for parking, that money doesn't seem to be going towards those things. They're just going back into the kitty. So I really want to know, within all this research and the decision to write this letter, did we ever find out why or where that money is actually being used clearly?
The money being used now.
The money that's collected, do we know? I'm just curious for my own.
My last discussion with the province was it was in the general revenues, just like all other money that the province collects. And they suggest it's being used for training and conferences for staff. Whether it is or not, you never know, because it's all in the general revenues. So, but the other part of it is those hospital facilities that don't collect any revenue have the same access to that money as those that do pay. So if you're somewhere where they don't pay a hospital fee, those employees have the same eligibility to go to training and conferences as those that pay the fees. So.
Like, it's pretty bad when you go to a hospital and you get happy when you get to the gate and it's broken and the gate's up. And I've always felt bad of, thankfully, I've always been in a situation that I could support that. But I just think about, every time I go to that gate, I just think of someone that doesn't have that extra, and it's not even consistent through the board how much things are. How much of a barrier that is there people that are not going to the hospital or going to see someone because of that. And I'm glad that we're going to do something for it, whether something happens or not. At least our citizens know that we recognize it's a problem and we're trying to help it the best we could. Thank you.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. Years ago, we used to get the medical system working for the people, and you got to scratch your head nowadays to think who's working for who. Consistency is what I like to see, and I do notice that in here that there's different levels of fees being charged right across. Consistency is good. One day here, a couple of weeks ago, I went up to the hospital, and my wife says to me, she says, "Do you want my card? I get by so many, parking fees for at one time. You get one for, you buy 6, you get one for 9, kind of thing." So I said, "No, I got $3 on me." So I go and I go into the thing, and that day there's no gate. They got the gates all open. It's free parking today. And I said, "Well, that's odd." So I kept my $3 in my pocket, and I went home, told my wife, "This is no fees anymore. They've eliminated them." I said, "My God, we were talking about that in council a few weeks ago, and we must have really acted on it that quick." So anyway, a couple of days later, I go back, and I go in, come back out, and the gates are down. I've got to pay, so I got to go back into the building, get a ticket, pay for it, find $30, and then come back out and put it in. I just left my car parked there, and people had to wait. But consistency is good. Even if we can ask them for consistency in what they're doing right across the province, it would be good. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. Councilor LeBlanc, please.
Thank you. I agree with both of the comments that were being said on both levels, because I could just go to Yarmouth and it's $4 and I can go somewhere that's $3. But what I didn't understand was why is it that some can be without it. Now, my understanding from the get-go was that, yes, it was used for the hospital itself, whatever money they did. Yes, it was some years around the line. As you said, it's been changed. So, my concern is too, somebody who wants to just go in there and drop something off, that it'd be, samples of whatever they need to drop off, so they have to pay in the $3-4 to get into the hospital to go drop off something, turn around, come back out. That's certainly unfair. And now with the process of getting tickets inside the hospital, that's like me walking in, me walking out, me walking back in, like Councillor Gunn, not knowing that I have to get that ticket in there as I'm going out. So consistency is definitely important, and I wouldn't say that I would be opposed to paying something, but I also know that, when you need to be in the hospital and you don't need to be another something, obstruction to getting you to the health services that you need. And it could be just because they just don't have that extra bit of money with everything else that needs to be done. So I am thinking that it should be removed because of that manner, because I think that we can make money some other ways. Plus, I think that all the employees there had to pay for their parking as well, if I'm not wrong. So you work there, but you have to pay for your spot. I'm not quite sure. And Halifax is a different story. You can't find a parking place even if you want to pay per hour. That's a different story and a half. So it's going to be a problem, I'm pretty sure, in one way or another, especially in the bigger regions, like in the city in Halifax, because if they don't pay anything, I've heard before through councillors that people like parking in there because it's not that expensive or whatever, and they need somewhere to park and blah, 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 so they're not really going to the hospital, but they're using hospital parking spaces, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor.
That's a problem.
Councillor Bartow, please.
I think I'll be covered.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next is RCMP Policing Services. Who's on the policing committee?
Councillor LeBlanc and myself.
Okay. Councillor LeBlanc, will you read the recommendation, please?
I move that Municipal Council authorize the Warden and the Municipal Clerk to sign the agreement for the joint use of facilities for the RCMP within Middleton Town Hall facility at 131 Commercial Street, Middleton, Nova Scotia, for a period of 5 years effective June 21, 2022, and ending on March 31st, 2027, with an option for a further 5-year renewal term.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Prout. Discussion, please. Deputy Warden.
Just put it to we're basically just paying the cost of having the mayor put on furniture and Middleton's cost per square footage. So I even though the prices have gone up a little bit in the last couple of years, sounds like quite a good deal.
Further discussion, Councillor Hudson.
So this agreement expires in a year.
Thank you.
Didn't Mark need it?
Oh, I didn't. Councillor Bartow.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned the way it's written up here in contracts, a little vague about dollar values. It's mentioned something about in the preamble, and is that an annual fee? Or is that a monthly fee? What is that fee? It just says, $500, that's $48. It's not clear. Right now, and in the contract, there's no mention of what fees would be applied, so we can't sign a contract that really has all the details.
If I may address that, Gordon? So it is an annual fee, and of course it is based on what the cost is to maintain that space. So it is difficult at April 1st to know for sure what that cost is going to be by March 31st, so they don't put a dollar amount in there. There haven't been any significant changes other than the cost for the person who maintains the office. It is nothing short of a really good price to have 4 officers sitting in the east end of the county.
I just wondering why, when you're rent space, you lease a space. That's the space, but then on top of that, did they decide to do something different? Well, I had to ask, for a share of it. That's a weird way to write up a contract. I had my concerns on an open-ended, ever-flowing amount possible here.
The original contract was written in 2000, and really it's been the same words ever since. We're just continuing on with an extension of what had been in place at that time.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now page 118. And I'll call upon the deputy warden again.
I move that municipal council approve policy 101, community grants, and repeal policies 1.4.9, community grants, 1.4.3, harbor authorities and societies capital assistance program, and 1.4.1, community contributions 7-day notice.
Seconded by Councilor Green. Discussion, please.
Sure.
Councilor Gunn, followed by Councilor Ansel.
Thank you. I'd like to, somebody actually explain this to me, because I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out, and I came to the decision on my own, of course, that, what this really was. Are we increasing the amount that is given out to some of these organizations? Is that part of this? I see that we've got some in here, some grants that we're giving out for heating systems and one thing and another. But this actual part here, are we increasing? I just need some explanation for what it actually is, what's happening.
So we wanted to, upon council's direction, look at all of our community grant policies, bring them up to date onto rising costs, quality of life, way of living, look at all the applications that we've had before. So essentially, the answer would be yes. Some groups will be able to have requests for more funding. What it comes down to, the recommendation is there's 2 categories for groups to apply under. One primarily focusing on facilities, the other on events and programs. The facility category would be a bit higher for obvious reasons, and the programs a little bit less.
Yes.
Councilor Ansel, did you have something?
I did, yes.
Please.
Just 2 things. So around eligibility, so it says unregistered. So in my mind, there's multiple terms to that. I just want to know what our definition of unregistered. So if you have a 4-H club that is registered with joint stocks, but they don't have a not-for-profit number, is that registered in our mind?
I would think that if they're registered with joint stocks.
Where are you?
Oh, sorry, page 119 under eligibility.
Thank you. Okay.
Because there's a lot of confusion around what, for grants purposes, of what is registered and what is not. Some organizations believe that to be registered, you have to have a not-for-profit, if that's really what a not-for-profit number through CRA. But our criteria is just joint stocks, I'm assuming.
The change from your previous policy to this one is that all groups must be registered as a not-for-profit or charitable organization.
Okay.
The charitable status comes from the federal government, which takes much longer and it's a bigger process, but we do deal with many groups that have registered charitable. If they do go through Nova Scotia Joint Stocks and register as a society, as a not-for-profit, they will receive a number, and both of those organizations will be eligible if the recommendations are approved.
So really, we're opening it up.
We're actually narrowing it down.
Joint stocks would have to be is the minimum.
Your previous grant policy, the one that's still in place, 1.4.9, the community grant policy, they currently do not have to be registered. And moving forward, we've always encouraged groups to get registered. Most provincial, federal grants and outside grants require that status. So it really is in their best interest.
So part two of that question is, by changing this wording, are we limiting organizations to apply for grants that we've given grants to in the past?
A couple, yes.
But if they go and register with joint stocks as a society, that would make them eligible.
That's correct.
Okay. Perfect. And my second question was around on page 120 under approval. I'm a big believer of delegated authority from our audit meeting, but when it comes to grants, I believe that it should stay with municipal council and not the CAO. But before I move forward with that, I just want to know the background of why we picked that, and do other municipalities do that? And how did we pick the 2,500?
The amount of 2,500 was basically decided when we went through meetings with myself and the CEO and my team. It was a rounded number that and anything over 2,500, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, requires a process to go through, like usually 2,500 and below. It's at discretion. And a lot of the projects that come in for 2,500 or less are normally approved by council anyways. So it's up to council's decision. It's completely your policy.
So I believe with that since most of our grants, since I've been here for a period of time, a lot of them have been around the 2,500 or below. And I personally like being able to discuss and learn about the organizations. And if it's something within our own district, it's nice to be able to provide more information to it, more as a public service announcement, or I just think that should stay with the council versus staying with the CAO, because most of our grants would not come here. And I think it's an opportunity that we can really see what goes on in our community versus it not coming to the floor and not being.
Administratively, I think was another angle we looked at it, just to make it easier in the process and lessen the burden for council, for lack of a better word. Again, totally up to council.
It's one of the burdens that I like. Personally, myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Councillor Long, followed by Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions and a lot of comments, and I might as well finish what Councillor Anslow started. When I saw this first, I thought, okay, so how do we know? But then at the same time, I'm thinking, if the CAO has authority to give it up to 2,500, that's great. So that council knows where the 2,500s have gone, into which municipality or which district. Couldn't it be added that a list of grants have been given to these different organizations at 2,500 or whatever the number could be? Because and then that would keep everybody in the loop. That's just a suggestion for that one. Because I know I'm interested in seeing who gets grants as well. The other one though, when you're looking on page 119 and you're looking at the maximum grant amount, that one, wait a minute, no, it's application contribution. We have changes so that at least they give a third contribution in the community facilities, because at times there was absolutely no contribution. And I've seen that it's changed in the community programs that they have to be at least 50% of the program cost or the maximum of 5,000, which I think it's really good. In all, I thought that the new format was clearer, I guess, and to the point. So therefore, it makes it a lot easier. And I presume that when it comes down to the wards, that they only have, it doesn't really specify in here, but that they can only apply, what's the old policy say? The ward is every couple years?
No, they were eligible every year, but the intent of your policy was to stagger.
That's right.
Yes, so if Margarettsville got one this year, Cotw would be probably a little bit higher up on the list to receive one the next year. But that isn't the case for this proposed.
So in here it doesn't say that. So if we're heading out with 3 wards that are coming our way, we're in trouble. No?
That would be council's decision, us to research the greater need and make a proper recommendation.
All right. And I do like the idea of the recognition on page 120 that they promote the county and say that we have donated so that they know that, county is part of it. There's a lot of other things that I want to say, but I'll let. The other one now I need to understand is the organizational expectations. We had 17 and we're down to 4. The 4 were automatic grants. So these 4 are going to go. These 4 are going to be funded from the operating budget. Any reason why just these 4 were picked, or is there that's just a question.
If I may order?
Please.
The 4 that were chosen, so one was the Annapolis County Exhibition Society, wonderful facility. Council has traditionally been a big supporter. It draws in a lot of activity for Annapolis County. So that's primarily the reason why that one stayed on the list. I'm trying to find the list right here. The other ones were Trans-County Transportation. That was, again, traditionally council has supported our transit operation, so it kind of made sense for those to come over to another part of the budget to be funded. Annapolis County Senior Safety Program, I believe originally, correct me if I'm wrong, that was funded through the operating budget at one time, and it was put into the community grant, so we're just kind of putting it back. Again, a program that council has always wanted to support annually to support the seniors in the community. And I believe the last one was Annapolis County Ground Search and Rescue. Again, council has traditionally always been a big supporter of ground search and rescue, and council will be able to choose the amount they wish to support yearly in the operating budget. But that was the reason being for those 4 specific groups as opposed to the other ones.
Okay, because I'm not opposed to this. I was just wondering what happened to the other 13.
They would have to apply yearly.
So Mr. Chairman, just a little more clarity. So these ones are essentially municipal services. So normally municipalities provide transit services, not nonprofit groups. There are some of the profits, of course, like this one. So if they were to disappear tomorrow, the municipality would be expected to take on that service. Ground search and rescue is the same as fire services. Emergency services, we provide the fire service of the budget. There's no rational reason why we don't provide the same level of consideration in the operating budget for ground search and rescue. They work together and they provide the same similar services. Senior safety is an RCMP initiative. We already provide money in the budget for the RCMP. Same thing, it's already in the RCMP budget, and so it makes sense to go there. The exhibition is a little bit of an anomaly, but the exhibition is such a large operation that they need to know long ahead of time that their money is there. So they can do their plans, do their exhibition, do their operations for the year. And so we had to wait, they had to wait till May or June to find out if they get money or not, and then if they have to cut back or whatever, that would be unfortunate. Most of the other groups, it's $500, $1,000, and there's no reason why they couldn't submit a simple application and receive funding. But these are the, I guess, the key or the core groups that need some consistency of funding. So even like on the transportation, if they're going to go buy a bus today, they need to amortize over 5 years. They need to know that they have an agreement in place that they're going to get funding, consistent funding for the next 5 years or 3 years. Otherwise, they can't go get funding and buy a bus and pay for it for a year, and then the municipality pulls the funding. Then they have a bus and no way to pay for it. They start trouble. So a lot of these groups, ground search and rescue, the same way they need to buy equipment, buy vehicles, the same way. Even the exhibition is just invest significantly. So
I totally agree with your comments and explanation. It's even a little bit more. It probably should have been there a lot sooner in that particular category. Thank you.
Councillor Hudson.
Yes, I just want to make a comment regarding the organizational expectations as well. I'm very happy to see that the policy AM 1.4.11 has been repeated. I'm glad to see that. I guess my main question has to do with the four that are renamed. Wouldn't it be required for them to submit, even though it's automatic, for them to submit like a financial report to the county? I mean, for whatever no reason, one of those organizations may be very, very large, right?
I do know that most of these organizations are in annual presentations to council policy. Those do not include their financial statements, but I know the Annapolis County Senior Safety usually does include a financial section in their annual report. But that, again, would be at the discretion of council, I believe. If moving forward, I'm not sure. The CIO might have more discretion. Like if you're able to ask those groups, I can't see why you wouldn't be able to ask them for that information.
Just my feeling that they should.
Most of them do, yeah. Yeah, most of them do provide an annual report, and perhaps you could just make sure in that annual report that there's some financial information.
Thank you. Councillor Bartow, followed by Councillor Gunn, please.
Just two things. Going back over some things that Dave already touched on, but the exhibitions in PCTS and the ground search and senior safety, they're still mentioned in the grants for grant, but not in the policy. Are they going to be recategorized so they're not grants? Or because I don't see the line item or intention of listing those in the actual the body of the policy itself?
They would be accounted for separate from this policy in your operating budget. So they would not be a part of this community grants policy or listed by name within this policy.
The authorization of the $2,500 ones, I think it's well that councillors would like to have the approval of those. It's not just based on the dollar value, I can speak to the efficiencies on that, but as to, whether we think that they're deserving or not, and whether that value, maybe we still, in other policies that are being kept rid of, we had the option of a lesser or a greater amount. So if we have to decide a greater amount, then all of a sudden instead of that $2,500 one, which is predetermined because of the decision. So I don't think that should be in there. And if it comes to it, we could make a motion. Can we send this back for redo instead of just taking advantage of our conversations?
Oh,
Whether we have to
absolutely.
be formal, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Sorry, excuse me. He said two separate things, and you said absolutely.
I'm sorry, Warren.
I'm still going.
I know, but I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah. If we could itemize issues that need to be, if they're not clearly covered in the write-up policy, I think that we need to institute it. If we're going through the effort, the red policy, you might as well get the word.
Thank you. Please help.
There's an amount for maximum effort grants. And if we're pulling out some of these larger figures too, do we reduce the amount of grant money per capita? Like I think it was 1.66 and whatever the percent, but that's not reflected in the policy, right on the policy either. It wasn't, there's a lot of stuff to these policies and this one and the preamble and work and us also. I was just wondering, whether, if we don't have that limit on there, then all of a sudden it's open-ended and we can get ourselves in trouble approving more than we should.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the using the number, the 1.66 or whatever it is, artificially inflates the budget every year, which then potentially causes council to overtax our residents. So what normally happens is staff do an assessment of the applications we expect to come forward each year. We determine what the value of those will be, and our staff generally have a good idea of what's coming in each year, as well as what the new applications are going to be. And then the budget reflects that. And so if we know we're going to get $200,000 in applications this year, that's the expectation. We may budget $250, so we have a little bit of cushion in case there's some extra applications come in. But if we use an artificial number like 1.66, we might budget $350,000 or $400,000, and we know we're not going to need it. And so that's the rational reason why we don't necessarily need to stick an artificial number there, because it's not useful. But each year, staff will go through and determine what the appropriate number is. And at budget time, council can adjust that. So if council thinks there's too much in there, council can reduce it. Or if council thinks there's not enough, council can increase it. But that becomes council's decision each year. And you're not bound by the policy, which then hamstrings you when you say, sorry, you have to budget that much and increase taxes, even though you know you're not going to use that money. It would be unfortunate to have to do that.
Maybe we could put a line in and say that the grant program is bound by the budget decision for that current annual fiscal year.
And that's a given though. Yeah. Whatever council budgets is what staff will come forward with. And if we don't have enough money, then staff will come forward and say, this application's come forward. We don't have enough money. Is council willing to go over budget in this area?
Okay, we're on the list. So I think that would cover some comments for that. Thank you.
Councilor Cotw.
Thank you. On the approval side of it, I agree. I don't think one person should have that authority to just issue checks out to the amount of $2,500 with application. I just don't feel we should go that. That's all I have to say on that. I'd like to talk about the exhibition, the Annapolis County exhibition, and the Federation of Agriculture. I think that's what they're called, Federation of
Sorry,
Agriculture.
it's not the Annapolis Valley exhibition.
Well, or Annapolis County, whatever it is.
I mean, it's not Annapolis County, it's Annapolis Valley.
Okay, whatever. But the exhibition and the Federation of Agriculture. Now, it just came to my attention here a while ago that the Federation of Agriculture owns the facility in Lawrencetown, owns the facility, but yet we fund, I think, the exhibition, right? Because we've given the money for the skating rink, for a new ring, a new barn, new this, new that. So in my own mind, I'm just trying to figure out, are we actually funding the Federation of Agriculture? Or are we funding the exhibition? The people that run the exhibition who, I guess, rent the facility from the Department of Agriculture or the Federation of Agriculture, right? So there's kind of a balled up affair going on here. And I'm not quite sure if one is the other or one belongs to the other. You know, is the Exhibition Society part of the Federation of Agriculture? What's going on with that funding model? Oh, and I have one other statement. Before we get into that, are we going to end up putting more money in our pot? No, we're going to work with what funds are in there. Thank you.
Do you want me to respond?
I have things to say, and I was going to respond.
Okay.
So years ago, they were, Canadian Exhibition was a subgroup of the Federation of Agriculture. It's now split. They're two completely separate organizations. As of a year or two ago, that they finally got their complete separation. We fund both of them. We give a grant. Have given a grant in the past to the Federation of Agriculture. I don't know if that was a regular one or if that was something we should approve every year. And the Exhibition Society pays no rent to the Federation of Agriculture. It is the least that could change with any of those.
Do we end up getting double dipped? That's what I'm kind of more concerned about. Do we end up funding both of these organizations for the same kind of thing?
Federation of Agriculture promotes agriculture, and the Exhibition Society runs the exhibition. They're separate organizations, aside from the exhibition leases property from the Federation of Agriculture.
And we fund them both.
For $0. They do different things. I personally always felt, from an administrative point of view, that we should be delegating our grants. And was the kind of thing, we write a policy that says go do this, staff should go do it and just tell us what they did. Councilman Alonso raised very good points about publicity and the political aspect of it. Things are very public, and it's nice to have a conversation, but I do enjoy that conversation generally quite a bit. However, delivering all these checks around various organizations over the summer with the warden has really brought my attention the timeline from submission to checklists that can be substantial. And I think, especially for smaller ones, where these are often for things that are not planned under the same degree as larger grants are, it might be proven to be a little more expedient in delivering that check. So I am content with the reading.
Thank you. Did you have any comments?
I'm just going to say Councilor Gunn's comments about the double dipping, but I guess the way it works. So it's no different than the town of Annapolis Royal owns the pool, but we give a grant to the pool society. Somebody else, the town of Middleton owns the rink, but we give a grant to the rink society. We just approved a lease for the RCMP. We're not actually giving money to the RCMP, we're giving it to the town to maintain their building and their facility to pay out the heat and lights. We're not actually giving it to the RCMP. So a lot of things we do, we're funding organizations. Sometimes it's directly, indirectly.
Councilor Renzo, followed by Councilor Pro, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to, ask a follow-up question. So if we were to move forward with the $2,500 and below with the warden, based on what the deputy warden said, would this actually speed up the process? I don't know if it actually would, but I just want to find out why we think it could, because even though the last time we did a big grant thing, from the point of where it was approved at council to to the point that the checks were given was months. How would it be any different than if the CAO signed it? How would it be any quicker? Because in my mind, if the council approves it at committee of the whole and then at council, it isn't approved. Why are we waiting months from that approval to actually give the grants out? My question would be, could we look at the internal process of that versus just moving it to the CAO? Maybe I'm way out in left field, but.
Margaret, if I may?
Please.
The process would speed up a bit. I would hate to say a timeline on it. It would speed up in the way where the staff time required to get it into prior approval to the CAO's office and then to the clerk's office to get on the agenda. So I need to do that within 2 weeks prior to your committee of the whole meeting. So that in itself would speed something up. And not having to wait another extra week, say for committee of the whole and then council approval, where you would gain a week in there. And I do believe that there are certain efficiencies we can create in-house as well. The procedure for giving out the grants has changed over the last couple of years. Every year has been different on how physically the group gets the money. So this year we really wanted to put that in the hands of councillors and get you out into the communities. That process does take longer to organize, calling people when they're ready, volunteers, all that sort of thing. The year prior, we sent most of them out in the mail, especially during the COVID years, which was much more efficient. So once it hits accounts payable and all the check requisitions are signed and authorized, and as soon as it hits accounts payable, they coordinate with the clerk's office for a letter to accompany the check, and bada boom, it's in the mail. So that in-person handshake, one-on-one, which is very valuable, does take more time.
So with that being said, I believe I even asked a question months ago is, couldn't we just do like any other government organization where once it's approved, we provide them the funds, and then you do the shaking hands, kissing baby picture type situation after? Because the province doesn't bring a check when they make a funding announcement. It's always beforehand. I just think that could speed up the process versus going to the CAO. Nothing against the CAO. It's just, I really like the grant portion of this thing where we really have an effect on the county and we can have the discussions. And I know that during the mini grant discussion since I've been here, there was a lot of good discussion of each organization, and we've even increased dollar values. Or decrease them, but I just think that should stay with council. But I think it's a separate issue of speeding it up, and I don't think just changing who approves it speeds it up. I think we should just look at how we do that process of sending it out. Perhaps we just send it out with a letter, because everyone knows that it's approved as soon as they watch council. And then they're waiting, and then they're calling me as the councillor in my district saying, well, where's the money? Are we getting the money? Versus if we just did it how we did during COVID, and then we would make arrangements to do the official presentation with the big check. I don't think the big check and little check need to go hand in hand.
Yeah, you have the nice big one now for picture.
Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. That's my 2 cents.
So I'll give you a simple example.
Yeah.
The Miss Whitman gets 40 grant applications. Deadlines. And pick a date. She gets 40 grant applications. She's got to go through them all. She's got 20 of them that are for $1,000. And so she simply does a one-page sheet, says this group's apply. Here's the recommendation, we've given this amount and this is why. She attaches a financial statement or application to it. She gives it to me on April 1st. The budget's approved in March, she gives it to me on April 1st. Within 2 days she gets approval and we issue the check. Okay? What'll happen now, so they'll get their check within a week or two, very quickly. And so what'll happen now is the applications will come in the end of February. By the time she gets her to them, it'll be the middle of March. She'll go through them, take her probably a month to go through them all, so it'll be early April. Won't make May the whole agenda, so it won't make council agenda. So we'll finally get to May the whole in May. We get council the middle of May, and people will get their checks the first or second week of June versus the first week of April. 2 months difference. That's the difference.
Big difference.
Oh, no, and I completely understand it.
And just to explain, it's not, I mean, I understand the position and council wanting to have involvement. I understand that completely. This isn't about staff wanting to work their way around like that. It's about the quickness with people. We heard it last year, but people want their check quicker. But the information I need to sign off on it doesn't meet the policy. Look at their financial statement, do they have the financial need? Have staff gone through it? Very quick process. What council's going to want is you're going to ask 20 questions. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Yeah. She has to do a more detailed report. It's not simply a quick report for me because I can look at the financial statement, but we're not going to give every member of council 40 applications, 40 financial statements, and then council going through and deciding that this one deserves more money or less money. We're trying to go through with one lens and treat them all fairly versus coming to council and saying, well, I know that group, they need a little more money and make an amendment. We're trying to do it so they all get treated fairly. So we can actually process them much quicker for smaller amounts. So that's why it's a small, I say small amount, 2,500. But you can have any amount you want. But if council wants to be the one making the motion, we can do it, but it'll probably be May, and you'll be here for 4 hours going through motion by motion by motion, like made a whole, and then we go through it all again at council, which is what happened this year. It just took a long time, and I don't think any of the motions changed. There was a motion to change one, I don't think it got approved. So all the motions were the same, I think so. But we can take pictures and do all that stuff anytime. That's irrelevant. Yeah, I wouldn't. The issue in the check has nothing to do with those pictures.
Yes, yeah. But this year we did. We waited and gave them the actual check in summer.
Yeah, we didn't have to.
Yeah, that was a bit.
I have Councillor Prout, Councillor Sheridan, and Councillor LeBlanc. Councillor Prout.
Thank you. Just briefly, I don't have any concerns with the change of the CAO's role for amounts below 2,500, and I am very pleased to see that under the organizational expectations, the 4 groups that are mentioned there and the change in their funding, I fully support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheridan.
So I support the changes, and I just want to mention that I believe it was 1 or 2 years when councillors approved the grant process. Each councillor was given the individual checks, and we went to our districts and took our own pictures, and we submitted them to the staff immediately. So everybody it was a quick process. I just want to mention that.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc, please.
And I was going to say exactly the same thing. We did that too. And we did also have a time that we brought them all here and did the presentations outside, the different checks as well. As one group, one time, and so forth. I approve with the fact of the CAO passing in the checks. I guess basically it's the 2,500. I guess basically what I hear is maybe we should add to it that you would just give us a summary of all these organizations has received X amount of money, it's already been done. I guess that's the only part that would be an addition that I would say, so that way public knows, councillor knows, and if they want more information after our meetings, we can go to I have to say Nancy because I forget your last name. Go right ahead. Sorry, Nancy. We'd go to Nancy, and Nancy would give us the extras. Like if we needed to know more information about what they wanted to do with it or whatever. Would that cause any grief for the CAO to run that?
No, what we can do is under the evaluation, just add another sentence after it talks about the 2,500. Just that staff will provide council with a monthly report that provides who's received grants and the amount. Just a sentence to go over on this board.
I think that would solve most of the problem.
So every month we get a report from these groups receive money, or this month we approve no additional funding at that point.
All right.
We got $2,500.
If that's what council agrees to.
All right. All in favor?
Sorry. 70 notice.
There's talks of adjustments, and if we're voting on the motion, it's not adjusted.
I adjust.
So,
Yes.
the,
As amended.
I'm on a motion to make those amendments before we pass out. And I think that would be more appropriate, because otherwise, all this discussion we just had is becoming.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing. Councilors can make motions anytime they like.
So I'm thinking that there's certain issues that are on the table. And they're having this battle here, so about pinpoint that. I guess there was one, numerous councilors mentioned is on the $2,500 approval. And there was a mention from the CAO of how to maybe handle that efficiently or changing the line. I agree. But if we vote on this now, that's what we want. We do that change. So,
amendment.
So, can we make an amendment to, so this, step forward, the motion to send it back to staff to bring back the rewrite?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I think the issue was adding in the monthly report to council. And that's the only change. That's the only one I have written down here. That's the only change, and that council just by unanimous consent agree to add that to the policy, and then they'll come forward to council next week with the revised one. There's no need for a formal motion, just authorize, just unanimous consent for council to agree to add that sentence.
Yeah, you're just trying to provide and make sure things don't slip through the cracks.
There are no cracks through which they Sorry, are you?
So, is that a formal thing? We ask for unanimous consent through the board for that issue?
Is that okay?
Yep.
Opposed? Okay. Councilor Ansel.
I might need Carolyn's help, but I would like to make a motion to make an amendment.
No.
Or how does it?
You just make an amendment.
Okay, I would like to make an amendment to the approval section. 120, on page 120, to decrease from 2,500 to 1,500 for the CAO.
It wouldn't be under that section.
Well, I'm just trying to.
That's just your notes. You want to go on the evaluation.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
124, the evaluation.
Yes.
You want to amend that from 2,500 to 1,500.
Correct, yeah, thank you.
Okay, what page?
So, 120 under the approval.
124. Evaluation. First paragraph.
Sorry,
Evaluation being changed from 2,500 to 1,500.
correct. Yes.
Do we have any comments?
Is there a seconder for the amendment?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. Discussion. Would you care to explain why you want the amount increased?
I would. So, with all the many discussions throughout the day on this, I do understand how to do it with efficiency, and that a good portion of the grants are around $1,000 or a little bit more. I understand the efficiency, because usually those smaller asks come from organizations that need money quicker than the larger numbers. I just think 2,500 is awfully high considering the amount of $2,400 grants we gave out this year. I feel if they're a smaller amount, like in my mind I was originally thinking 1,000, but nowadays 1,000 isn't worth anything. However, if organizations are putting in for a grant of 5 or 500 or 1,000 or a little bit more, I think 1,500 is where I would be comfortable, where I think it would solve the efficiency for organizations that needed the money now. And anything over 1,500 is usually a bigger project or something bigger that maybe we would like to have a discussion about. So I think it's a meet in the middle type number, where I personally would feel, because my original was I want to talk with them all. But in my mind, this is a way to speed up the process from the way that it was described to help the people that are in need. But I feel 1,500 is the better number for that efficiency for the people that would be, organizations that would be in need. Anything over 1,500, usually there'd be a bigger discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan, please, followed by Councillor Bartow.
I understand where Councillor Enzo is going with that. However, there are community halls that do require $2,400 grants depending on the square footage. So that would slow down the process for those communities. So I am in favor of the 2,500.
Thank you. Councillor Bartow, please.
The policy, I can't remember now, so much paperwork. The criteria for example, the community halls, 1,200 versus 2,400, based on square footage. Is that criteria, is that inside the policy, or is it just not returned into this policy?
If I may, Warden? That will no longer be a requirement in the policy moving forward if this policy is approved by recommendations. So the size of a community hall, really, from listening to council's discussions over the past several years, a heat pump's going to cost the same amount for a community hall less than 2,000 square feet than it is going to be for a community hall over 2,000 square feet. So that was completely taken out. And they would apply under the facilities portion. So depending on their project and the costs of it and the financial need and the need for the building, I think this will be more comprehensive to make a proper recommendation.
So this doesn't, basically 1,200 or 2,400, basically it would be gone.
Yes.
And we would, each project runs merit.
That's correct.
In a way, I felt that more or less that's the way it should have been earlier, because if the hall doesn't, whether it's square footage and they're just under, they can only get half as much as the hall in the next community, which that equipment would probably be the same cost for each one. So I think that the way this policy is going in general feels better to me. For that purpose. Well, so I think that's a question that, for the 1,200 versus 2,400 but having said that, that seems to be a figure that was leaned on. And if we went back to 1,500, then the amounts for those halls we would be in the right bracket for that. So I would not be in favor of the motion to reduce that.
Thank you. Right. All in favor of the amendment signify by raising your hand. One. All opposed? The motion is defeated. We'll now vote on the original motion. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? The motion is carried.
With that one,
Yes. We now go to page 125. Have you got that there, Councillor Sheridan, 125?
Yes.
Could you make that recommendation, please?
I move that municipal council approve policy 103, asset requirement obligations, 7-day notice.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Prout. Discussion. Councillor Gunn.
I'd like an explanation, please. I don't understand it completely.
It's very broad, essentially. What this is saying is it talks about what it is, and the implementation will be for April 1st, 2020. It says 2023, but we have to have it for March 31st, 2023, so we actually have to back implement it to April 1st, 2022. per the requirement here. So this just kind of guides how we're calculating the asset retirement obligations. So in a quick synopsis, basically what we've taken is the main impact to us is facilities. So this facility is one of our largest liabilities, this one that we're in right now, due to the lead paint and asbestos. So we've taken the facilities, we've used a 2016 asbestos report. AIM has actually done all this background work for us. And they have essentially valued the remediation per square footage and calculated a future or a present value cost, but then we had to discount it. This is a very bad explanation, I'm sorry. It's not a very easy concept. But essentially we have to calculate the present value of the future remediation. So that's essentially what this is saying, and then we have to recognize it as a liability on our financial statements. So as we kind of talked about with audit committee, it's going to increase our total investment in tangible capital assets, offset by an increase in liabilities. So overall, it'll be net zero, and then we'll kind of see that fluctuate. And as we sell off facilities, or one example might be the fire hall, for the Bridgetown Fire Hall. As of the financial statements, it's going to be included in the liability because it was not demolished at that point. I know it was part of our capital budget for this year. So in the 23-24 statements, you'll see a decrease of the liability for something like that. That's kind of the gist of it.
Okay, sorry.
A non-accounting explanation. Here we go.
Thank you.
We own buildings or properties that are contaminated.
Yes.
And so the accounting standards are changing that those that use it must pay for it. So if we had this building and we use it for 100 years, we don't want our kids and grandkids to have to pay to remediate that contamination in 100 years and pay all of it. So we're now obliged to put aside so much each year.
Like having a landfill.
Exactly, so much each year, so that when the time does come when we tear down the building and remediate the contamination, the money is in the bank. So that future generations don't have to pay it, we pay it as we go, which is similar to it. And so the only criteria here though is it's things that have to be legally remediated. So if we have a property that there's no law that says we must remediate it, then we don't have, that doesn't have to include this policy. But those that are, like if it's asbestos, landfills are a different beast, but they would be included. Or if there's some legal liability or legislation that says we must remediate that property or that contamination, then it must be included in this policy. So the first year we do it, there'll be a bigger number. And then each year going forward, it's called accretion, so it's just the incremental amount. So each year there'll be a little bit extra. But if we get rid of them, and make them down, you may not have to include any money in the budget. But if we were to buy another property, like an old garage something, then we'd have to add more each year to go forward. So the biggest contamination are garages, but we don't own any garage. Well, we do own technically one, I guess, in Bridgetown, which is a problem. But I say problem, not a problem. But so that'll have to be accounted for. But anything else, if there's not a legal obligation for us to clean the contamination, it doesn't get included. But if there is a must, so this simply. Those that use it pay for it now as opposed to waiting until down the road and somebody has to pay for it.
That makes sense.
Councilor Bartow, please, followed by Councilor Hudson.
These are a little confusing in a way because it's clearly before it's not that all of a sudden somebody come in here and spray a bunch of chemicals in here. Oh, it's contaminated. Asbestos is not disturbed or products like that. If you don't have to touch them, you don't have to deal with them. And if you are doing renovation, you're dealing with that in your contract costs. So why would we have to put other money aside over and above that? That I guess you would have to take that contract, pay that contract out of general funds, and then move some money out of the reserves back to take its place. What's the purpose of it if it's not required for us to do anything if it's untouched?
All right, so one small thing was we actually don't have to fund it. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be money in the bank. We're not actually setting aside physical cash to remediate in the future. That is not a requirement under this as of right now. And in terms of if we do a renovation here and we remediate, say, 60% of it, then we eliminate 60% of the liability going forward. That's the only thing that happens. There's no actual cash changing hands. in reference to this liability unless we are expending money to remediate it at some point in time.
But you mentioned it's based on a 2014 report, and there has been a lot of considerable renovations here since then, where some of that would have been noticed, so we should be not using the 2014 report estimates. It should be amended to current post-construction or renovation projects.
So for that, we have to look at a cost benefit. It would cost us almost as much to get a new asbestos report on all of our facilities than it would our whole liability for, say, the next 50 years is $130,000. So the annual expense is very, very minimal. And it's not a cash-based expense. So it was a 2016 report. I believe the basement has been renovated, and I believe a lot of the lead paint and asbestos is in the older part of the building that hasn't been renovated. So there was that to consider, that it was fairly accurate, and just based on the total value of the $130,000 approximately of the liability, it would make no sense to spend, say, $25,000 for a new asbestos report. That's probably going to impact our report by, or our liability by, like, say, $10,000. It's just a cost benefit. We don't want to outlay that to a contractor if we don't really need to. And this is non-cash based, so this is not impacting your budget at this time, and it's not impacting your bank account at all. This is just kind of an accounting requirement to increase your assets, increase your liabilities with a net zero impact on your equity.
I don't see where we have to update reports if we know the percentage of the building that was done. If we did the whole series of the renovation, well, there's 50% of the building. So it might not be 100% accurate. It's bigger, but you can use that with a report on it. That's something you already know.
So the policy here is just establishing the framework for the asset retirement obligations. This is not, it doesn't tell us exactly how to calculate everything. It's kind of the framework that sets the policy, or sets the asset retirement obligations. For the actual calculation, that's going to come up. We can talk about that at audit committee when our financial statements come forward. We will be presenting what our findings were with the actual report, and we can look at that. AIM did our asset management, so they are aware of the renovations we've done to most of our facilities as well. So the 2016 report would have been a frame of reference. So I think when we discuss the valuation and how we've come up with the valuation at audit committee, that would be a good time where we can kind of look at the logic of maybe they took that report, and I'm not 100% sure of the answer on this at this moment, but maybe they took that report and already did that calculation because they had all of our information on our renovations for the asset management component.
I heard that this was being dealt with money put aside, but then you mentioned that there was no cash put aside. So there's opposing comments that maybe you could clear up for me.
Okay, PSAS, Public Sector Accounting Board Standards, does not require this to be funded. You do not have to have an offsetting reserve with cash in it to fund this liability at this time. That is the requirement for PSAS.
And my requirement as a prudent financial advisor is you need to set aside some money on occasion so that your grandkids and other people don't pay for your use today.
So, I guess, what are we doing?
Well, we're not doing anything. It's just a policy that says we have a policy. We'll decide at budget time going forward, but we've got to get an auditing committee established that goes through all this stuff in detail and brings back some recommendations to council as to how much we should be budgeting each year based on that cost analysis, maybe doing some updated projections as you're talking about getting a handle on all of our potential buildings or properties that are contaminated and coming up with a list, and then we can provide advice to council, say here's the total list, here's the total potential liability, here's what we think we're going to need in 10 years. The financial statement's going to show the liability, but the council's going to be, do we want to fund it over 5 years, we want to fund it over 10 years to catch up. So what's that look like?
The tweaking of this basically is the following comment is going to be addressed at budget time.
Budget time, but audit time too, or the audit time, all discussions.
Okay. I think I'm for a way to choose.
Deputy Warden. I just want to say I am excited. Very confused as well, but especially because I made this mistake, maybe slight miscalculation of asking Angela some detailed questions. With my small human at home, I spent a lot of time sitting there and investing in his future, whether it's just taking him or whatever. And I also think about his future. And I think this very let's go with novel idea of not borrowing from the future is phenomenal. I think it'd be great if we didn't just apply it to our books, but maybe we applied it to something like forestry,
Our environment.
climate change, or, you know, our plastic toothbrush. That's all.
Only one brush.
Yeah, one brush. Who knows? I would be ecstatic.
The wooden toothbrush and the plastic wrapper.
I would
There you go.
moderate my
Okay.
Welcome to the.
I have,
Councillor Hudson, please. Yes.
I still need clarification here. So the CEO mentioned we would have the cash, but did I also hear that there won't be any reserve set up for this?
Essentially, when we're taking our assets and our liabilities and we're impacting our equity, it's sitting in our accumulated surplus, which is made up of all of our different funds. So we've got our water funds, our reserves, our operating reserve, our capital, all of our annual surpluses go to our operating reserve, as we saw on the audit committee, $3.4 million went in, way more than enough to cover, say, this liability. And if that's the trend, just noting what the liability is to make sure we have, say, a minimum balance. But I would think at this point we have a $47 million consolidated surplus accumulated across all the funds. So that's kind of where it sits.
Okay. Having said that, what's the difference between this and depreciation? They're both okay.
This is setting up an initial liability for asset retirement obligations. So you will see a new liability and an increase in our assets. Annually, you will see amortization expense and accretion expense to amortize both your assets and your liabilities. So that's the impact. So what's the difference? Not much.
They're still both just bookings.
Yes.
And that's where I have a problem. It's just with the booking. You're not really setting aside cash.
I'm suggesting we need to. I'm suggesting we need to. No different than amortization for our water utilities. We have a depreciation and amortization, but we also set aside money, cash for that too.
Okay.
So I see this as the same. It's not going to be a lot of money, but it's appropriate that we do it today. The users of the system, the users of the facilities pay for it, and not burden future generations for that money. So it's not a lot of money. I mean, not going to be significant. But I'm suggesting, accounting says it's just a liability on the balance sheet, and I'm suggesting there needs to be some financial accountability as well, and there needs to be some cash reflected somewhere, yes. But we need more discussion about that. That's what we're going to do. We need that discussion. So what that looks like.
Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you. I just need a simple explanation of the word accretion. Accretion? Accretion.
Yeah, it's just incremental, the addition. So
Incremental.
So if
we put 130,000.
So the liability this year is 100,000.
Yeah.
Next year's 110,000. The accretion just 10,000. Just the change.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Page 131. We have 4 separate motions here. Deputy Warden, why don't you take Springfield?
Thank you, sir.
Anytime.
I move that the municipal council approve a grant to the Springfield District Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $2,400 to support upgrades to the kitchen and bathroom in accordance with AM 1.4.9 community grants, community halls and centers assistance program.
Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion, please. Councillor Hudson.
My comment is not pertaining just to this particular motion. I guess I just look ahead to next week's council meeting, that this should come ahead of the new community grants halt. Because afterwards, we can't approve it because we repeat it.
Thank you. Further comments? Good point. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you. Deputy Warden, would you take the next one, please?
I move that the municipal council approve a grant to the Cornwallis Park Community Association in the amount of $2,400 to support upgrades to the community hall in accordance with AM 1.4.9 Community Grants, Community Halls, and Centers Assistance Program.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gunn. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, arm wrestling. Okay, Councillor Lenswell.
It's on my side of the street.
Okay.
I move that Municipal Council approve a grant to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 33, Bridgetown, in the amount of $5,000 to support heating upgrades in accordance with AM 1.4.9 Community Grants Capital Project Assistance Program, Small Projects Matching Grants.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hudson. Discussion. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you so much. I won't be voting for this because I believe that Royal Canadian Legions are private organizations. I can't, unless I'm a member of the Legion, I can't go to the Legion. So I won't be supporting that on that basis. Thank you.
Excuse me, we go through this every time Councillor Gunn raises this. And you do not have to be a member of the Royal Canadian Legion to go to the Royal Canadian Legion. If you had been at the very wonderful Thanksgiving dinner last Friday night, I dare say a great proportion of the people there were members of the community, and the event was advertised as a community event.
But also you have to be a member of the Legion to be a member. It's a membership-driven Legion. Sorry.
I certainly agree that you have to be a member to be a member.
That's right. There you go.
Thank
you. So, I believe that this is definitely not a private organization. This is a service organization that not only helps members that were in the Canadian Forces and RCMP, but the community as a whole. So me personally, I have chosen that at this point, I've not joined the Legion as a Legion member, as a Canadian Forces member, but that's for other reasons. Not saying that I've never attended anything at a Legion, which I attend at various things, dinners and banquets and fundraisers and whatever, is I do agree with what they do, but they don't do it for internally. This is a service organization that is 100% funded through fundraising, through poppy campaigns, through, it's an organization that, it's a service organization, no different than anything else. And I think it's a good cause, and especially now that our communities have less and less community groups, community support. And it's nice to see that we still have legions in these areas, where a lot of legions have now closed. And this legion, I wish in their application they put in a subcategory that the Lions Club in Bridgetown also uses that facility.
Different story.
As well as there is a Army Cadet unit that parades over there. And this building is a major centerpiece within my district and within the Bridgetown and area community, that they're trying to do the right things and they support a lot of activities. And having new heat pumps, of course, would allow them to move funding to support things. So I am 100% in favor of this.
Thank you.
Very good.
Quite a tangent.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. Yes, for the second time. I've been vice president of Legion. I was a Legion member in Clemensport for almost 35, 40 years. Long time. I've been a supporter of the Legion for many, many years. The Legion that I joined years ago, you had to be a member to get in the door. As a matter of fact, you could be signed in by a member, but you could only be signed in once by the member. This Legion really hasn't changed. When you talk about your poppy campaign and the wreaths and all of that, and even the membership goes to the command, Legion command, right? It doesn't go to the Legion itself. I'm not saying that the Clementsport Legion hasn't helped the community. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we had the Army cadets up in the Clementsport Legion for a while. We had a lot of things, community events. I'm not saying that Legions don't do that. What I'm saying is that the Legion is basically a private club. They do arrange things for the community. They do. I'm not saying they don't by any means. But to be involved in the Legion at all, you have to be a member of the Legion, who is ran by, what do they call that organization, Central Command or whatever, and runs out of Halifax. I'm not saying that Legions don't do good work. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they're a private organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to discuss this?
I just wanted to add my comments.
Could I ask Ms. Whitman to address that comment as you do every year?
The Royal Canadian Legion?
Yes.
They're eligible to apply as a registered charity, so they're a national registered charity. This particular application, as Councillor Enslow had alluded to, they did write a cover letter. They are the home of the Lions Club as well, the local Army Cadet Corps. They also rent out their facility as any other community hall for weddings and special events. And as of late, they've also been doing some community fair type of activity there with very low-cost community vendors and some new initiatives. They've gotten a new executive the last little while, so they've seemed to be making some progress. And their letter, they stated that they are having trouble with the cost of oil. And I don't know if you're familiar, but the Bridgetown Legion in itself is quite large. So. But they are eligible to apply under the current 1.4.9 policy as a registered charity.
Thank you. Councillor Berto.
I just wanted to chime in there is, I understand, there's Legion members, but the facility in most cases has halls, and they're run as community halls, and it's not stopping anybody in the communities from anywhere from participating in that. The only thing that's different, like I say, I don't see this problem, but just a conflict or whatever. Is it a conflict? I've been a member for 44 years, but it's a member of the Legion, and that allows me to go into any Legion around. If I want to stop in for coffee or beer, I can go into any branch. It's not this specific branch. It just opens up that door for you as well. But as far as the community hall aspect of it, to run as community dances, whatever, there's all kinds of other groups that rent the space, same as a hall associated with the church or anywhere else that we support. If we went down this road, we would say that we're not doing it because our policy actually says we don't support churches, but detached halls because of the community use we do for that reason. So I think we're in that same realm. Thank you.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Who would like Port George? Councillor Pratt.
In Councillor Connell's absence, I move that Municipal Council approve a grant to the Port George Regional Recreation Centre in the amount of $5,000 to support the cost of replacing their furnace and hot water tank in accordance with AM 1.4.9 Community Grants Capital Projects Assistance Program Small Project Matching Grant.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll take a short break, please. Welcome back. We will move, please, to page 134. Discussion?
Should I get Diane and
Discussion. Thank you. Page 136. Councillor Longmire's not here. I can't read it. Deputy Warden, please.
I move that municipal council approve the Annapolis-Remo Intermunicipal Emergency Services Agreement between the Town of Annapolis Royal, Town of Middleton, and the Municipality of the County of Annapolis, as recommended to all Annapolis County Remo councils by the Annapolis Remo Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And I think that brings us to page 151. Councillor Sheridan, please.
I move that municipal council adopt the consolidated financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2022 as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Enzo. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to
The public statement and letters from council / roll of the board.
Okay. Discussion?
No, I never heard that. I'm sorry. I missed the last one. I wasn't here.
We're on the additions to the agenda, the first one being the public statements and letters from council / roll of the warden.
Okay, we haven't voted on that, or?
No, it's just coming up on the agenda.
Okay. Are we waiting for something?
Did you want to?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. Thank you. So not only did we get a letter, we received a letter, but I've got several phone calls over the last 2 weeks. And it all stems from a letter that council put on their website. And posing that council took a certain stance against there we go. It's extremely disappointing to hear about a planned protest representing million-person March for Kids, which is not what it's called at all, taking place in our community of Bridgetown today. And it goes on to explain everybody's right. If I can read this, it would be a lot easier. It's extremely disappointing to hear about a planned protest representing million-person March for Kids taking place in our community of Bridgetown today. Of course, every person has the right to voice their opinion, support their own belief in a form of a respectful peace protest. However, if the message reflects fear and hate towards other groups of people, it's just wrong. I, along with all members of council, strongly and unequivocally denounce any words or actions of hate towards other individuals regardless of their beliefs. Thankfully, we live in an area where there are people who are diligent in promoting inclusivity, kindness, acceptance, and not only the 2ST LGBTQ plus community, but everyone. This is kind of continuous positivity and encouraging message of inclusion that is all appreciated and valued and needed and signed by our warden. What I got from that was several calls, people very upset that this letter says that anybody that was protesting was against the LGBTQ or the 2ST LGBTQ plus community, and they're not. If we go to the frequently asked questions about the people, and this is a Million March for Children, was what it was called. Frequently asked questions. Do you deny the existence of trans people? No. They do not, we do not have to be GIS, gendered, heteronormative, particularly conservatives. Absolutely not. Is this anti to LGBTQIA plus? By no means. We deeply value the rich spectrum of perspectives within the community. I think you are all right and violent extremists. We appreciate diverse, and this is the answer, we appreciate the diverse perspectives and always aim to create a space of respect and unity. Our core values oppose any form of violence and hatred. Why do you hate teachers who are protecting children from abusive parents? We don't. Anyway, they've got a whole list. If you go to their website, Million March for Children, you can find all of that on there. What I felt and feel that has happened is that we were misrepresented and we didn't vote on this warden's message. And I want to go on, and I'd like to read you a letter I wrote to the warden because it explains better how I felt after I read this statement from them. And I said, good afternoon, Warden. I'd like to offer a comment on your recent warden's message, one that addresses both the content and the venue of the message. Regarding content, I have had many discussions with a range of people who are concerned about the teaching of sexual education at a young age and how families are being barred from even asking schools questions. A family friend with school-age children asked about the curriculum to ensure he was reinforcing the message at home and was told to contact the school board lawyer rather than speak to a teacher. The problem is not necessarily the message content, it's how the message is being handled. By excluding families, I believe the assumption that people opposing the topic because of their fear and hatred of people from the 2ST LGBTQ plus community is misguided and presumptive. Family and friends of ours from the queer community comment on how flawed the roll-up process is, and it's divisive and inflammatory. Regarding the venue, and I'm speaking with much respect for your job description, I have no recollection of this topic being discussed at council, and so I question how you are representing the will of council with this message. If it were discussed at council, I would have had the opportunity to point out that we should never make assumptions about people's motives, or that they are behaving in a hateful or discriminatory manner. They have their own reasons for why they oppose these measures, and until we've heard them, we should not paint them with the same brush. And once council has heard my opinion, each shared their own and deliberated all options, we would give you the nod to address the topic via note, via vote. In short, I don't believe you've been granted that authority to speak for council on this matter. There is a process that needs to be adhered to, just as it does for approving expenditures, etc. You are our collective voice when you speak as warden. Ultimately, I don't believe this topic should be one addressed by council. It results in a judgment of people's intentions and values, and promotes the fear and hatred I believe you aim to quell. You expressed disappointment that people are protesting, and then said, if their message reflects here hate, well, what if it doesn't? Are you still disappointed? because it's your first sentence, it states as much. Of course, I too would assume we would denounce messages of hate and discrimination. But assuming that people are protesting because they fear hate is a biased perspective and does not model the acceptance and respect that was intended with your letter. These are our constituents, and we represent them. Because you are denouncing their choice to protest an issue that matters to them, even before they demonstrate. The hate and fear you have anticipated, because this was written without the direction of council, I ask that you immediately remove your message from public view. Respectfully, I am addressing you directly and hope my points are promptly considered and addressed. If it comes up in council, I will be in the position of making the same points publicly, which I'm doing now. And I thank you for your time and consideration, Michael. I didn't receive a response to this email. That was 20 days ago. Moving forward, I would like a retraction of the statement and a public apology. I believe the public needs an apology. And council, further letters and things put out should be approved by council, public statements. And if I go on further, I've gone to the code of conduct. There's several issues there I have, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
You can go first.
All I want to say is we did discuss it at council briefly at the end. I remember the conversation of what our thoughts were. No, we didn't vote on it. It was at the end of kind of committee of the whole or council, I forget what it was. It was the day before, or the 2 days before the event was to happen. We didn't vote on it, but there was a discussion about it. And at the time, I think I mentioned that, I don't know if it's really our place as a county to really put a statement out, per se, in advance of it. But I just wanted to, for the people that were watching or listening, that there was a discussion here, but it wasn't voted. Now, maybe I'm correct and wrong, or maybe it's all an imagination in my head, but I remember that conversation. Thank you.
Conversation.
Yeah, just in a general sense. The question comes down to what the role of the warden is. And so, is the warden simply another member of council and has no authority or jurisdiction over and above another member of council? Or is the warden the spokesperson for the municipality, takes the input from individual members of council on a regular basis? Not the whole council, doesn't take a vote on every issue. And is council then granting latitude and trust in who you elect as warden to make those decisions on your behalf? The warden gets contacted on a regular basis by the media. And so does that mean he cannot talk to the media, but he must wait for a council meeting and explain what the media is asking?
Different story.
And ask council to tell him what he's supposed to say. If there are other issues that come forward, there was another letter sent the other night, which directly relates to an issue with the province, and so should that letter have not been sent. And anything like that, any correspondence, the warden needs approval of council before anything gets sent. And so that's the crux of the issue here, is what authority does the warden have to take independent action based on his election as warden and what council deems as putting trust in him, to do that, or her in the future, depending on who the warden is? Or do all those decisions have to come to council? And the warden simply becomes another member of council and does not have any stature other than a regular member of council.
Councillor Ansel.
I know it's the second time, but I'm glad you brought that up. Because I agree that the position of warden should be, and not just of another councillor. That's the whole point of being elected from the body of the councillors, to be the chairperson, to be the media type contact, as well as if we had to vote and meet to talk about every single thing, like park, any type of thing that we send out, whether it's a day of this or a day of this or a day of that, that's all we would do. I think that we can learn from this one situation of, on a sensitive topic, maybe we can have a broader discussion of, is it really the county's place to put out a statement such as that, or around something that's sensitive? Is it really our role to be doing that? I understand that, to have that discussion. But to say, and to muzzle the warden or that position on what they can and can't, they are the representatives of behalf of all council and the municipality. And I don't know about anyone else, but I do not want to have a meeting every other day whenever there's a statement that is sent out, whether it's official day of this or a recognition of this or anything that we're doing. We can't just do one and not the other. So I think if we just have a broad discussion around, what is our role of councils in these types of sensitive matters, I think that would be a better discussion than what the warden can and cannot do. I have faith in the position. I have my own thoughts of warden versus mayor, but that's for a different day. But I don't think that we should even really be having that big of discussion on that portion, just a discussion around sensitive topics. Like, I think there's other things I want to say, but it might sound too harsh. But thank you.
Deputy Warden, please.
So I have a couple of conversations with a couple of residents that are running conversations about the mayor versus the warden question, differences and all this sort of thing. And on paper they're the same thing, they're just elected differently. But then there's the little differences that are decided in the background of the stuff. And I want to start this by saying I'm 100% unequivocally taking this was the warden's position and to make this a statement of this nation. And my reasoning for it is, well, if you're the mayor, you have been elected at large and you represent the population directly. If they don't like it, they can vote you out next time. Well, the warden is the exact same thing, and they are elected by representatives to all those, for all the public. They're elected by all of us to represent the whole public. It's still an election. It's, a little bit disconnected, but the warden still represents the population of the county. And so as our spokesperson, I think that's fine. I mean, what the warden is, you can change a warden, you can't change a mayor. So I think I think this is exactly what the warden is supposed to do, is make these statements. As to the nature of the statement, I think we're a government. You can do one of two things as government. You can sit there and maintain the status quo and, tend to tulips, or you can make change. Sometimes change is uncomfortable, and change is always uncomfortable. So, and change requires leadership. So, if leadership is not leadership, if you're going to lead, you're going to catch fire.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
No, I have another.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, you've all brought up good points. There's letters. Oh, well, letters. We have to meet. We don't have to meet. We don't have to meet for any letters. They can always wait. They can always wait until the next one. With these ones that the province, that was just sent out to the province. That was sent last week. That could have waited until council had a look at it today and at least be aware of what we were pushing in the letter. I don't agree with the letter. Simple as that. I don't agree that a bunch of those old buildings down the base should be turned into low-income houses. Well, God, what a stigmatism that would be for people living there now, wouldn't it? Jam 6 low-income families into one of those old barracks blocks down there. What kind of a mess will that be in 5-10 years? That's just my opinion, by the way. And so that could have waited. This million-person march is none of our business. Was not a council decision, as was quite pointedly pointed out by the letter that we all received last night. Right? That's not our job. Our job is to provide services that residents and constituents want at a fair price. We're legislative services. We don't dig into what's being taught our children, because we basically gave that up years ago. Right? Now, here's another thing. Because of that statement, how long before we're up against some sort of a lawsuit? How has that affected business? Because we came up with a statement saying that, these people that were in the protest were against the, I gotta get this right, I've been told to get this right, the 2ST LGBTQ plus community. So they've come out, and if you follow the Facebook chain, that on the county, a lot of people that came out and organized this are business people that have young children. They have since been attacked via email chains, and their business is getting canceled out. 2 businesses, local businesses, and I'm not going to say where they're at, but they're local, getting canceled out because of their help in organizing this march, and then having people, because of this statement, reading that the county is extremely disappointed and that they must be acceptance. They're not accepting of the 2STLGP community, anybody that would protest. That's not actually what it says, but that's what could be read into it.
It's not actually what it says.
That's just exactly what it said.
And I would ask you, please do not.
That's exactly, I just said that. I just said exactly what you said. It's not exactly what it said.
Right.
You want me to say exactly what it says? But anyway, I'm going to just leave that. The long and the short of it is, people who organized this march are now being, what's the word I'm looking for? Chastised by people canceling out their business. And we'll be lucky. And now they've taken this, handed it off to another lawyer, Now, how long before we get some sort of lawsuit against us for our position that we publicly made out there, and saying that anybody that was in that march is basically against the 2ST LGBTQ plus community?
Thank you.
I think this needs to be remedied, folks.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilor Hanson.
Thank you. I'm not going to talk more about the letter, but it's just around one of the comments about the old Cornwallis site that was incorrectly made. So almost all of the councillors attended the meeting in Cornwallis that discussed in great detail what their plan is. And it is not to shove 6 families or whatever into what is existing there in an H block or a building.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your personal comment is. But anyway, the fact is that they will be, the plan is to have them renovated, no different than anyone else turning the academy into condos or anything else. But I just don't like the fact that we're making false comments. And if you want to talk about legality, well, there's no different than that organization saying, well, someone on council saying this.
You always stand by mine.
Excuse me, please.
So that's just my concern is we're having a discussion of one thing, and then we're dragging other things into it that are false. That's just the concern that I have. Like, I'm not going to talk more about the letter in regards to, sensitive matters and different things. Should we handle it different? Yes. But to then bring other things in that, as soon as we say it, it's public. People watch this. People look for every little thing that we can do to slip up in things that we say. And for us to say something really negative that is untrue, it just contradicts all the other statements that are made. So I just wanted to correct that in person, that if members would have attended that meeting to see what was going on, it is a great economic driver for our communities to recognize the problem of lack of housing and the fact that someone is turning something that happened to them where someone pulled out of a contract or what have you, to see the need in the community to move forward and not just taking what is there and moving people into it and say, well, have a good day. They're going to be invested in through whatever they're going to do. But they're going to be renovated. They're going to be renewed and different things. They're just not moving into one as it is now. The plans clearly stated. There was the pictures, there was the narratives, there was everything. I just wanted to fix, to set that straight, really, is what I wanted to do.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Cotw.
Thank you. I agree with comments from the Deputy Warden. I have no urge to try to muzzle or micromanage letters that come out from the letterhead of the Warden. When I first came here, one of the first things that was impressed upon me was that the Warden speaks for the council. There will be times that difficult situations are being dealt with, commented on. But I think, by and large, that is the purview of the Warden. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Further discussion.
Not our business.
Pardon me?
Not our business. Done some things. You can shake your head
All
over.
right, we move on now, please, to Planning Advisory Committee. There was a meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee last Thursday, and at that meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee, the Planning Advisory Committee voted to refer the matter back to the Habitation Area Advisory Committee. Thank you. Now we have in camera 22-2C Personnel of the Municipal Government Act. Could I have a motion to go into camera? All in favor? Sorry, Councilor LeBlanc and Deputy Clerk. And we adopted that motion. Thank you.